Welcome and thank you for joining us for this live local church Q&A on all things social media. No matter if you are searching for in-depth information or just getting started with a Facebook page or Instagram account for your local church, here is your chance to ask your questions about social media and how your church can utilize it for meaningful ministry and effective outreach. So be sure to share those questions with us in the comments, no matter if you're watching us on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. And we'll be sure to get to those either during this session or after the session. No matter if you are searching for in-depth information or just getting started with a Facebook page or Instagram. My name is Stephen Adair, and I am the Director of Local Church Services at United Methodist Communications. Our team is here to help you with marketing solutions in the areas of branding and logo development, website development, outreach promotion, and social media strategy and implementation. So we invite you to head to resourceumc.org/LCS for more information. Prior to this role, I managed the denominational social media accounts for almost 5 years, and I also managed the social media and online presence of my local United Methodist Church here in Nashville, Tennessee. We have seen many new folks come into our community of faith because of our reach on social media, including a couple of people just this last Sunday who saw one of our posts on Facebook and wanted to check us out for worship for the first time. One of those two people even tagged us after her visit and shared how it was the first time she had taken communion in 3 years and how she started crying during the service because she was filled with such joy. All of this because of a Facebook post from our church. So it is so important to be online and have an effective reach on social media.
Hi everybody, my name is Renee McNeil and I'm our Senior Social Media Specialist here at UMCOM. And my role is to help our local churches with their social media. So it's pretty much what takes up most of my day. I work with pastors, church administrators, social media managers, basically anyone who is running your church's social media. My background is in radio and TV, and I've managed social platforms for major cable networks. And I love social media because it's a good mix of analytical and creative, and it's something that's always evolving and changing. I get just as frustrated as you do with social media, probably on a daily basis. So when we talk and you tell me what's going on, I totally understand and love working with you to get through those things together.
So this live Q&A, along with all the other work that United Methodist Communications does to share the story of the global United Methodist Church and our work in resourcing all levels of the denomination with communications and marketing support, is only made possible by your support. If you'd like to make a donation to support communications ministry throughout the United Methodist Church, you can do that at resourceumc.org/giveumcom. So we've been excited to see all the registrations come in, the pre-registrations for this event. I think we were nearing or over 400.
Yeah, close to it.
So that's exciting. And a lot of you submitted questions for us to work through. So we'll be working through some of those. We can't get to all of them because there's so many. But we'll be sure to answer those and get back to you after this event if we don't get to your question. But please be asking new questions or anything that comes up during this in the comments on the Facebook Live or YouTube Live. So let's start by covering a few new features and changes that are happening. As everybody knows, social media is always evolving, and the features and just everything, and it kind of disrupts our patterns sometimes even. But let's cover a few of those things that people might not know about yet.
Yeah, so I think one of the big things that has had people very nervous actually is that they're hearing that Facebook Insights are going away. Now, some of you may have no idea what Facebook Insights are, and we'll definitely talk about that today. But for those of you who rely on those analytics to see what's happening on your church's Facebook page, it's just the standalone tool. If you go to facebook.com/analytics, I believe, it's just that standalone tool that's going away. You'll still be able to get your analytics right there on your church's Facebook page. On the Instagram page, you'll still be able to get analytics. If you use Facebook Business Suite or Ads Manager or Events Manager, you'll still be able to see everything there. And even if you're not placing ads, I definitely recommend, if you were one of the people that said, what's Facebook analytics? What are insights? That's something that you definitely look into, because it's really important to know who's visiting your church's Facebook page and your church's social media, and what people are responding to.
Awesome. So I know that we had a question from Karen Smith at Broomfield UMC in Colorado asking about Instagram Reels.
Yes, Reels are Instagram's new feature. If you aren't familiar with it just yet, but you are familiar with what Tick-Tock is, it's pretty much the same thing. It's piecing together really short clips of video or even photos to make a video that's either 15 seconds or 30 seconds, or some people have access to the new 60-minute Reels feature. But to kind of compile those, and the bonus on Reels is, if you haven't done them, I recommend that you try putting some together, because since it's Instagram's latest and greatest new feature, they're really promoting it a lot, so you get a lot more for your post than you would normally get. If you post a reel, you'll see that your next few posts get a little more engagement and activity than they normally would, and that's because Instagram's really boosting those reels.
Awesome. And that's in the same app too.
Yeah,
so.
it's in your Instagram app. You'll see now they've even, like we were talking about, things evolve and change daily. Now you're adding a photo or a video to Instagram looks a little bit different, and so now it gives you the choice of your post, your Instagram TV, and you'll see Reels within those options as well now. And it's good to mention too, if you're kind of seeing this right now and you're like, what is this? I don't even have that. It's because Reels is only available in some countries right now. So certain countries don't have the availability of that just yet, but some do. And it's a really great chance to promote maybe some of your summer content that's coming up at your church, youth camp, VBS, highlight some summer vacation stuff, summer sermon series. These are all different things that you can use to piece together some really fun reels for your audience.
And we were talking about it before this, even like as people walk into your building, just get them to say like good morning and stuff, so people can get a feel of who's walking in your building and stuff, to kind of get a feel before they walk in or meet people what they'll experience.
Yeah, take a few quick clips of people walking through the door on Sunday morning, or if you have an event coming up, take clips of people coming into the event, and have them say hi, have them share something if they'd like. But these are just kind of an easy go-to if you're looking for material to make your reels.
So I know that there's something new coming up with Instagram.
Yeah, one of the new Instagram features that they're testing right now is the ability to upload both photos and videos from your desktop, like on your laptop or your home computer. And I think I hear people ask about that from time to time. For some people, it's just easier. I think that it will come with some additional maybe scheduling options that'll be really nice. So I think that even if you're somebody who normally does it on your phone, it still may present some new options for you to do that differently.
That's awesome. I know people have been waiting for that for a long time,
yeah,
to be able to do stuff on the computer and not just rely on the app. So we've received a lot of questions about which social media platforms to be on. So these questions that we're about to go through, they might be super beginner, super basic, and some might be a little bit more advanced. So we're going to start out a little basic here. But Brian Wilson from the Western North Carolina Conference asked this as well: how many times to post? So which ones to be on for a local church, and how often to post?
Yeah, so we usually kind of tell people, if I speak to somebody who's not on anything, usually that really good place to start is Facebook. And then from there, I always tell people, don't add something else until you feel like you're comfortable, you're in a good groove, and you kind of have a really good feel for Facebook and what you're doing there. And then maybe add Instagram. And those are kind of the first two that I would tell someone to start with. You always find somebody who's kind of just jumped on everything, and they're trying to do everything all at once, and some of those generally fall through the cracks, and then you see the account and no one's posted on it in several months. So if someone new is coming to that platform and looking for your church, and they're like, oh, well, they haven't even been here in 3 months, then it just doesn't seem like your church is very active and engaging. So I always say start with Facebook, and from then maybe gravitate into Instagram. And the good thing about that too is because you can schedule through to both through the Facebook platform as well, if you're somebody who likes to schedule some things out ahead of time. And again, too, it's going to depend on who your congregation is and where they are. You're going to find a little bit of an older audience on Facebook, and then your younger audience is going to be on Instagram. So you kind of want to make sure you're hitting both places. You want to make sure you're speaking to both of those people. A lot of times people will ask, my congregation's a lot older, how do I engage them? The best thing with an older congregation is you have to tell them what you want them to do. So spell it out. It can get kind of tricky with baiting. You have to be careful of baiting and not telling people click this, do this, go here, because that'll get flagged as baiting. But just be a little more specific about what you want people to do. Are you posting a video? Make sure you tell people, hey, this is here for you to watch. Or maybe start with the word watch and then tell what the video is. So an older audience, you're just going to really kind of want to walk people through that a little bit more. And the younger congregation, you just really want to appeal more with content, things that they're interested in, things that they would want to see. They're probably not going to want to watch your worship video for last week, but they are going to watch like maybe highlights from the youth event they were at last week. So just kind of think about who you're talking to and where they are. A lot of people ask about Tick-Tock and Snapchat. I usually tell people if you have a responsible youth leader that can maintain those and take care of those, by all means, because that's where that audience is. That's what they're familiar with. But if you are a pastor just trying to run all of your social platforms, again, just maybe start with Facebook and Instagram and 3 to 4 times posting at the very least a week, and then only once per day. I think unless you have very valuable information, I always tell people if you have a big event going on at your church and maybe the morning post is a reminder that this is happening, and then the evening post is maybe photos from that event or important information that people need to know later on that day as well. So that's perfectly fine. But other than that, I would try to stick to once a day, 3 to 4 times a week being kind of the minimum.
Absolutely. And the good thing about it, like you said, is the cross promotion of using those images and videos. You can use them on Facebook and use them on Instagram. Yeah. Once we get off into Twitter, you need to shorten it and go very short on your text and stuff. So that takes some adjustment. But really between the two, aside from maybe some video length issues, like you can use the same content between both and hit your same audience. I think I find myself maybe tweaking the language in those posts on Instagram than I do on Facebook, or maybe making it a little bit shorter or whatnot, just to kind of get it out quick. But so Braden Parks at Decatur Christ UMC in Decatur, Illinois, brought up a good question about content. Outside of the live service streaming that many of our churches have found themselves doing over the last year, if you weren't already doing it before, what are some other good ministry-oriented content for social media? Yeah, a lot of people, especially those who are new to social media, have kind of gotten in a place now where they were rushing to get those sermons online, and now they have that there, and then it's kind of like, okay, so what do we do now? What's next? And it's really a great place for ministry. There's a lot of things that you can do. Bonus sermon discussions with the pastor are always a great idea. We talk to a lot of pastors who, they have things who, maybe they gave the sermon on Sunday, but there's certain things that they didn't get to add in there because of time. So maybe there's bonus content, or maybe it's just a discussion about the sermon from Sunday. You can do Sunday school online, outreach, missions discussions. You can interview other pastors or thought leaders in your community about their beliefs. I've seen a lot of people doing really great interviews where it's a pastor and then somebody from the community who's a believer, and they want to hear about how do they incorporate that in their job and how are they engaging that in their work life. So there's a lot of opportunities there, and weekly meet and greets with the pastor. I can't say enough about, especially if you have new people in your community who are looking for information about your church. And maybe especially if your church isn't kind of back to full capacity, meeting in person right now, it's a really great way for people to be able to sit down one-on-one with the pastor, learn more about that pastor, learn more about the church. It's kind of taken the place of those new visitor, like meet in the back of the church after the sermon kind of thing. So it's been a really great opportunity for people to be able to come in this space and just kind of talk one-on-one with the pastors. Yeah, and I think we're in a really interesting time right now, just getting through the pandemic and where we've been and where we're at now, as far as, it seems like it's been an opportunity for people to try out new churches.
Yeah.
And if they weren't in their pew every Sunday because the church was closed or just because they weren't comfortable or whatnot, it's given an opportunity for people to really try out maybe a better fit church.
Yeah.
So social media is their first place to experience you, to experience your church. So I always like to say every social media thing that I do to try to help churches is to always look at every piece of content, whether it's a video, photo, even a text post, anything that you post, look at it from the lens of somebody who's never walked in the door before. Is it relevant? Are they going to care? Does it tell a little bit about you? Does it give them a feel about you? And always, this seems really basic, but watch your camera angles for photos and videos. And I know that as sanctuaries might not be as full right now as they were pre-pandemic, as people are getting back in the swing of things, or if your sanctuary isn't full regularly and have just just explosion of people, just watch those camera angles for to make sure there's not a ton of empty pews around. And I know that's really basic, but I like to share that every time because I see churches that kind of take the live stream from the back with all the pews in the front. And that's just not inviting looking. So just always look at everything you do from the lens of somebody who might be visiting or looking for a new church. So Paige, we're going to tackle some Facebook questions right now. So Paige from St. George UMC in Fairfax had a question about Facebook ads. And it ties in with several questions that we got about the Facebook algorithm, that scary thing, and what to do when you feel like no one is seeing your post. I mean, can we get an amen on that one? So tell us a little bit more about Facebook advertising.
Yeah, so the good thing is that the Facebook ads are not only a great marketing tool for your church, but they can also help you open up that algorithm that's so scary. I think we've all been there when you're kind of like, I'm posting this like great content and 2 people liked it and I have 5,000 followers. What's happening? And a lot of times that's where that algorithm has closed up on you. But Facebook ads are really great. There's a lot of different strategies for the Facebook ads and a lot of different targeting options. I know Stephen with his church, we were discussing this earlier. Some people like a strategy where you're kind of doing small boosts along the way and you're kind of putting a little bit of money behind different posts here and there. Some people like to wait until they have a large event coming up and spend a bigger bulk of money, or maybe every couple months they're spending a larger amount of money just to raise awareness over those next couple months and then do it all over again. So there's a lot of different things that you can do, and my suggestion would be for you to try out a lot of different options. Social media is nothing if not trial and error. So just kind of see what happens for your church. A lot of questions that we get involve the budget. Does it need to be a large amount of money? Does it need to be a small amount of money? Do I need a weekly budget, a monthly? And honestly, it's just really up to you. The good thing about social ads is that a little bit of money can go a really long way. So I think that's another reason why it's so great for churches, because most of us are working with smaller budgets. But ads can reach people in your community, and you may think of them as just kind of this general ad that you're putting out. We'll see if anybody reacts. But there's a really great option that you have, and that's to target the audience that you want to know about your church, about your event, about your ministry. Maybe you have a large youth event coming up. It gives you the option to reach out to parents in your area, to teens in your area, to people who are part of maybe like a big youth program in your area. You can do mirroring ads off different audiences. So it really gives you a great opportunity to be very specific with the people that you're marketing to in your area. And again, a little bit of money goes a long way. So just try different types of ads. Try boosting some posts. Try running a local business ad. Try it with a small amount of money, a medium amount of money, with whatever you have, to be honest. Because you can even, like I said, do something with a small amount of money and just kind of see what happens, especially if it's an event. That's a really great way for you to kind of ask people who come to the event, like, how did you hear about this? And see, like, maybe you'll hear a lot of, oh, I saw it on Facebook, and they might have not have otherwise seen it, but you ran the ad and it got out into your community. And then the other side of that is that Facebook loves money, right? They love our money. So they're very glad to open up that algorithm when we spend money with them. So you'll see if you start to run ads, no matter how big or small, that they'll start to open up that algorithm. You'll see a lot more people engaging with your content, reacting to your content, and you'll kind of see that difference of before you were running any sort of ads, and then after. You'll see a lot more people are seeing your content, which is nice since you're spending all this time creating different things.
Yeah, so let's talk about Facebook as your foyer.
Yeah.
So what would that mean?
Yeah, so a lot of people wonder too, like what should I be posting? And it kind of runs into the ad space as well. What should I run as an ad? What should I be putting on Facebook, period? And sadly, one of the things we've kind of seen through the pandemic is a lot of new churches have gotten on social media is that there was a rush to get on there, and we weren't really sure what that strategy should look like or that information should look like. So the space has kind of turned into more of a bulletin board. You may notice if you just spend some time looking down through the posts on your church's Facebook page, make sure that you're talking with people and not to people. You may notice as you're looking down, like you're just telling people things. Here's our sermon, and it's the sermon. Here's what time you need to be here for this. Here's what time we're doing this. Here's what we're doing in the community. You're not really talking to people. So you want to think of Facebook as more of your foyer of your church, where new people are coming in, regular members are coming in, people that have been there forever coming in, and you want to really make it that welcoming environment. You want to greet people, just like you wouldn't walk up to somebody out in the wild and be like, hey, how are you doing? And they just continue to walk away, or be like, hey, my church is Sunday at 10, and continue to walk away. Like, you want to make it a conversation. You want to make sure that you're not just speaking to people on your page, but that you're really creating conversation. That's the thing that the pandemic has kind of shifted for us, is now you have this 7-day community instead of just we show up, we meet everybody, we engage on Sunday. Now you have this 7-day community happening on your Facebook page and on your social media. So you just want to make sure you take advantage of that. We've seen rises in things like suicide and depression and a lot of really negative things over the past year. So this is a really good place for you to be engaging people, asking for prayer requests, asking what's going on in people's lives, having conversations. We talked about some of the ministry content ideas earlier. So just a lot of those things just help you to just really engage with people and not just be in that billboard space with your social media.
Yes. So Rhonda in Artesia asked a great question. Facebook group or Facebook page, can you have both or one versus the other? Which is a great question and a source of confusion, I think, for a lot of our churches still.
Yeah, for sure. We do still see a lot of churches that are operating on a Facebook group, and that's fine. I would say you can have both, but you need to have both. Every church needs a Facebook page. Kind of think of it as that overarching umbrella. It's that foyer of your church that we just talked about. It's that central voice of the church. It's where you can put your about information, your location information about your church. You can link it to your Instagram. So we talked about being able to schedule both, and that's going to give you that ability. You can tag different people, different organizations. It's going to give you that vanity URL. So when you tell people like, oh, our church is on Instagram, it's at Facebook, such and such, UMC. And that's where you're also going to find those insights that we talked about, where you can find out who's coming to your page, what are people responding to you on your page, and also the ads that we just mentioned. So you can place ads through the Facebook page as well. Now the group is a little bit different. Kind of think of it as the Sunday school room inside your church, underneath that umbrella. It's definitely a more niche space. It's where you can get member-generated content. It can be hosted by a Sunday school church leader. It can be events for specific groups happening within those groups. It can be your volunteer community if you want a really good space to talk to the volunteers at your church and to let them know about things coming up, meetings, to check in on them and see how they're doing and to have a real community there. Smaller subgroups. It's really great too for multi-location churches. So if your church has 2 locations, this is a really great opportunity to have one overarching Facebook page for the church and then maybe like a group for each location. You'll see that with a lot of the bigger churches now that are in different places. They have that one page that covers everything. It's all that basic information, and then the groups kind of break down different locations, different Sunday school groups, different things going on.
Yeah. So, and another thing as far as the groups, I know that it's for internal conversation, and I think a lot of our churches still use their Facebook page, which is superbly external and you know, recruiting people in and really trying to get a vibe of what's going on. Even one thing that I see a lot of churches do is posting like when all their members die on their Facebook page, which is important for the life of any church community to recognize the saints that have gone before us. But that would be kind of an announcement that would go in a Facebook group instead of a Facebook page. Yeah. So I think that's one thing that I've been seeing a lot lately. And I think that part of that is the need for content and stuff. So we'll continue to get into some of that stuff. But I just wanted to throw that one out there too, since I've been seeing it quite frequently lately. So let's move on to Instagram. So Trish Harris at McLeod UMC in Oklahoma asked about starting and maintaining an Instagram account. What demographics does it reach, and how should it be different than Facebook?
Yeah, so a lot of people generally will start with, should I be on Instagram too? And the answer is definitely yes. Like we said earlier, when you feel ready, when you've kind of mastered Facebook, then move on to Instagram because there's a ton of users. It's 1.2 billion users. And the great thing is that 9 in 10 of those people follow a business account. So just like you want a business page for your church on Facebook, you want a business account for your church on Instagram. And so that's where you're going to find like your 25 to 34-year-olds. They are the biggest audience on Instagram, and just under that is your 18 to 24-year-olds. And the surprising thing is that men kind of outnumber women on Instagram. You'll find women usually a little bit higher of a user number on Facebook, and then maybe a little bit more on the male side on Instagram. And then the younger users are using it many more times a day than the older users. So this is a really, really great place to cover this huge audience of people. Now Facebook, like I said, it's going to cover a larger area of demographics, and if it tells you anything about the people that are on, it's currently the fastest growing population is seniors, 55 plus. So just kind of think about your different audiences. You'll find a lot more rural areas the users are on Facebook versus Instagram. So you just kind of have to figure out where you are and who's in your area, not just who comes to your church, but who's in your area, who do you want to reach, because you want to make sure you're not always just speaking to the people that show up to your church on Sunday. So it really needs to kind of reflect the audience and make sure that you're responding to, that you're engaging people, and remember what the platform is for. You know, Instagram is more of your photos and your videos and really short text. This isn't where you want to put, you know, like a picture that has about 4 paragraphs of text with it, or even a photo that has a lot of text on it. You want to make sure that you're just kind of keeping true to what that space is supposed to be, because that's what people are there for. So you want to make sure that you're kind of matching your content with that platform and that audience.
Yeah, so Josh McClurkin just commented, and he's in the Memphis conference. He said there's a pastor in our district who does 60-second sermons and funny clips. It's his personal Tick-Tock account, but he advertises it for his church as well. So I'm hoping that that's a way to use a bunch of different platforms. Yeah. But I do hope, and Josh can chime in back, but I hope that he uses those 60-second sermons on on the church's Facebook page and Twitter and Instagram. You can put those everywhere. So, but anyway, I thought that was a neat.
Yeah, and you know, that's something to keep in mind, I think, for any platform, is just the attention span of anyone and everyone is so short on social media. You know, if you think about it, think of what you do. You just scroll through, you look. So that's why I try to tell people, keep the text, especially on Instagram and on Facebook too. You want to keep it very streamlined, very precise, get your point across. This isn't the space on any platform to like write out all of your sermon or write out all of your announcements for the week. We see a lot of the announcement. I'm listing everything from my church bulletin and the text of this Facebook post situation. So you want to think very short, precise. You want to catch people's attention, you know, and the same thing with your video content too. If your 60-second sermon sounds amazing, 60-minute sermon, you're not really going to get a lot of people from the beginning to the end usually. So just kind of keep that in mind.
Yep. There's another question about where to place ads. You can place them pretty much anywhere.
Yeah, you can place ads on pretty much every social platform these days, including WhatsApp now. But really, I think we've kind of been looking at Facebook and Instagram for the most part. You should definitely be running ads on both. I would say if you're somebody who's running the social media for your church, to begin getting familiar with Business Manager. It's going to give you a great opportunity to place business ads for both of those. You can do it directly through the apps as well, but it really gives you an opportunity to kind of cover all your bases in one spot. But yeah, I think it's definitely worth running ads. Again, you want to think about the content that you're using for those ads. It might be different for an ad on Facebook than it would be for an ad on Instagram. But I would definitely run it on both spaces. Just remember, you have such different age groups and people on different platforms that why waste the opportunity to reach those people? So yeah, put them everywhere. Put them everywhere. It's kind of like how many platforms should you be on? And my thought is, well, how many people do you want to know about God? So it's kind of like that, everyone, everywhere, right? Yeah. So far-reaching, put it everywhere. Whatever your budget allows might be a better way to put that.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, just from what Renee said earlier, is that a little money goes a long way, and $1. You can boost things for $1. I think you can run an ad for $1. I don't know, maybe there's a minimum on that one, but you can boost a post for $1, and that goes so far. And as far as just the targeting, not to get into all the details of targeting and all that, there's so many options there. But like if you're starting out building your Facebook page, like target, there's an option that says people who like your page and their friends. So at least there's that connection there. There's that bridge already there. That's really great for churches. If you've already kind of established your audience, you can always, of course, boost. I like to boost to people who like our page in the United States and then in different countries as well, because they're going to want to engage with us. And from their engagement, then it trickles out, and then people see their shares and that they liked it and that they commented. So that's really a good place to start. And then also, of course, you can target people who are similar, maybe theologically, of your church. We have the gambit of churches on the theological spectrum, but maybe it's high liturgical post or Bible verses or whatever, and you can target other Christians on Facebook, or social justice. You can target people who are interested in those sort of things. So there's so many options to really reach the core audience that you're trying to reach, instead of just boosting and throwing it out there to the world, because you also want to have an effective strategy of boosting in ads. So we're going to move on to YouTube real quick. So Connie in Murfreesboro, Tennessee, who hosts her online services at Fellowship United Methodist Church, asked about how to best engage with both YouTube and Facebook during worship without taking away from the sermon experience. So we kind of thought that this question was probably that Connie does the engagement in the comments. So if you're doing live stream worship and whatnot for your church, which I hope all of you are, it's been staged with everybody commenting. They greet each person that comments. We invite people to make sure that they let us know that they're there in the comments of the video on Facebook and YouTube Live. And they also interact with them during the prayer request to kind of have that pastoral vibe and feeling to really kind of engage in an authentic way. I think that's important. If you don't have slides up on your wall, you need to be putting the lyrics in the comments to the hymns and songs that you sing, so they can sing along from home if they're not up on the screen somewhere. There's just a lot of ways to do that, but I think the biggest takeaway from this is to be authentic. Don't be don't force engage, and maybe if it's you need to find the right person to do that engagement, to make sure. I think I see other churches that people will comment along the whole worship service, and the church doesn't engage at all. The church isn't commenting, they're not engaging, responding back to each person's comments. I think that is so important as we build community outside the four walls of the church.
And I think it's important too, I don't think we touched on it, that if you have that dedicated person that you trust to get on every week, maybe it's Connie who's doing an amazing job apparently doing 2 platforms on Sundays, but give them permissions on the Facebook page so that they can actually log in and do that engagement as the church. That way people see that it is the church. Because if I'm new, I don't know who Connie is, and I might not feel comfortable engaging with her, or I might not even realize that that's kind of her role as like a host, and that's what she's doing. So if at all possible, have them, somebody that they can even be home. It can be in someone else that's watching online, and that's always great too, because there's that camaraderie of like, oh, we're watching online together. But have them log in as the church so that they're doing this engagement as the church.
Yeah, and just to kind of in real time, Joanna's asking a couple questions on the Facebook live stream. If someone doesn't click or comment, how do you know that they're watching? That's a great question. You don't. You can see the number, of course, in the corner. What you can do is just reiterate, just to make sure that you can ask people, hey, let us know you're watching by commenting, and do that at the beginning of the service. Maybe do a reminder at the end. And somebody else commented that they don't feel comfortable with prayer requests. That makes sense. Sometimes we ask for just first names, so it's not. I don't think we ever get a last name, so I don't think we have to worry about that. But just everybody's context is a little bit different on prayer requests or their thought on that. And also, how do you deal with confidentiality with live streaming without big blocks of dead space? And I'm guessing that might be spacing or camera angle. I don't know if that's what that's related to, so sorry if I'm taking that question differently than intended. But I think that just means that you need that camera up in front. With us, we don't show anybody in the pews. I know that churches have really upped their technology game with cameras and whatnot. And I think that there are, putting in your bulletin, make sure that people know you're live streaming, and that if they don't want to be in the camera, that they need to maybe be behind a certain section of pews, or maybe on the left side, or maybe just wherever that camera is not going to hit, because I know that we do have people that don't want to be on camera for whatever reason. And just one more thing as far as not knowing who's there. Have a Google form, something as simple as a Google form that's like your online connection card or your online visitor card.
That's a great idea.
And put that in a link. That's another way to engage during the worship service is, just have that link to your Google form and say, hey, let us know you're here. And then that's the way that you can take back, since somebody's not physically filling out a guest card that's in the pew.
Yeah, that also, I know you said some people might be a little nervous about the prayer request thing. That's also a really great way to address that maybe too. Is just say feel free to put your prayer request on there as well. Maybe that just feels like a safer private space.
Yeah, definitely. So Anita at Mouston UMC in Wisconsin asked how to track views. So if you can tell us a little bit more.
It's kind of the same on both spaces. On YouTube, you have an analytics option. It's within the YouTube studio. So if you go to your church's YouTube page, if you click on your church's logo in the little circle up in the right-hand corner, you'll get the option for YouTube Studio. And within there, you can see analytics on the page as a whole or on videos individually. And on Facebook, it's the same. It's those insights. Now, it is important to mention, you do have to be an admin or a manager on the pages, whether it be YouTube or Facebook, to be able to see the analytics for both. So if you're somebody who's involved with your church's social media, you probably already are one of those things. But to be able to see analytics, you do have to be some sort of an admin on those pages.
Yeah, so tell us a little bit about YouTube and why it's important to be on there.
Yeah, so a lot of churches I think right now are just recording that sermon on Sunday, or maybe they're broadcasting live on YouTube to either YouTube and Facebook or one or the other. But regardless, your videos are probably just kind of ending up on YouTube. And so there's really a great opportunity there for you to get those videos seen a lot more than just by your church congregation on Sunday morning. YouTube is actually the number 2 search engine underneath Google. They're owned by Google. But they're the number 2 search engine underneath Google, and there are 3 billion searches a month happening on YouTube. And instead of just leaving your content there, you can actually optimize it to grow that page, and so that content gets served to more people. YouTube's kind of overall intent is to keep people around longer, so they're looking for ways to search your content, to serve it to other people. So if I go on and watch something that might relate to something you spoke about last Sunday, it might serve me that sermon as well. So that would be super helpful. So there's a lot of different ways you can do that. And it actually starts with that faceplate, that thumbnail that you're putting on your video. It's really the first place that algorithm starts. YouTube uses several algorithms, unlike Facebook's one big algorithm. but that very first algorithm for them is that thumbnail that you're using, and it searches both the graphic that you use and the text. So you want to make sure that you're using a good photo that kind of represents what's in that video, and text that explains, maybe what that sermon series is, who the preacher was, the date of the sermon, and any content that would link back to that. Because maybe I'm somebody that's online and I'm searching for something about, maybe I'm in need of help and I'm looking for different videos on like depression and things like that, and maybe your sermon covered something like that. It's going to know to serve that to me. So that's a way that you can reach a lot more people. And consider your title. I see a lot of churches just titling their videos like the date of the service, like it's like 6/21/21, and that's it. And that's, again, something that YouTube is looking for searchability. So make sure that you're putting the name of your church, maybe where your church is located, and you can include the date if you want, but it's really not super relevant except for maybe to your members who missed a service, and so they're looking for that specific one. So just keep that in mind and really optimize that about section that you can attach to your video. Put links to all your church's social media, your church's website, information about your church, where it's at, who the pastor is. You just have to realize that all of that information is kind of going into all these different algorithms, and that's going to help for it to be served to other people. So think of it as a way not to just kind of hold those videos for your congregation, but to really reach other people. Just like, you've realized other people are watching your sermons maybe from other cities or states or churches during the pandemic. This is another way to reach people in a lot of different areas very easily.
Yeah. So what was really exciting when we got the questions in from the pre-registration for this live Q&A, we got questions from other countries, not just United States questions, which was really exciting to see. So we have a question from King Memorial United Methodist Church in Sierra Leone. How can WhatsApp be used to communicate during a lockdown?
Yeah, WhatsApp, I think if you're in the U.S., if you know what it is, you think it's just a way to maybe communicate with people in other countries. I think it's just kind of that for us. I don't think we really utilize it as a lot here in the US as other countries do, but in other countries, it's a really big platform, and it's of course now owned by Facebook. So it's really, ever since they purchased it, it's turned into more of a social media kind of networking place. So the great thing about WhatsApp is that you can send your church's newsletters through it. You can even set up bots to answer general questions. So if people are asking, when are your church services? What kind of programs do you have? You can really set up bots to answer a lot of those questions. You can get really good feedback from people in your area. You can do prayer requests. You can check on your members. It's another great way to send positive messages during hard times. You can send information about your church's openings and closings as we kind of navigate different things now through the pandemic. And you can share schedules with other leaders as well. So it's a really kind of great option for those who may not have as easy access to other social platforms, especially those in other countries.
Yeah. So Alvin from South Africa had a question that ties into this as well. He asked, how best can we do user education to members on use of social media? Back here, most members complain on data.
Yeah, so the easier kind of go to that is to kind of aim for your lower data engagement. So think maybe photos instead of videos, WhatsApp versus Facebook. And a lot of those places have different data bundles that they are offered in certain areas. And sometimes those providers have bundles where the data for certain apps is at a cheaper rate. So maybe it's cheaper if you're using specific apps versus others. So I think they're pretty popular in some areas. So if they're available and popular in your area, you can kind of factor that into the decision of which channels you want to use to focus on social media.
Awesome. So let's go through some of the questions that I've seen here on the Facebook Live. So J.W. Berkey submitted this question in advance, but let's hit it now. So he is looking for tips on how to get more church members to share their church's posts. So what we do is I'll just do an announcement from time to time on Sunday morning that is, hey, just remember to share our posts, or even that's another way to like engage with people online that's watching your service then. Like, hey, share this worship video, or be sure to comment and like it. But that gets that reach further out there. But you could just remind your audience or your congregation, I guess, to be sure to engage with you. I think we need to focus on our organic engagement of our own people. I think that with us, I see like our church, I think people just see it and they pass by it and they don't really engage with it, because I post quite a lot in a good amount, I think. But enough to where it's like they don't think to like or share everything. But just to remind your people to like and engage with your posts that they see on the scroll as they're scrolling through their social media feed is a good way to do that. And also, at one point I had an email group. Think of your people that are really big on social media, that are really active on there, and like get an email group of them together and just make them your marketing team. Like make them your like social, like what's the
Influencers.
word? Influencers for your church, yeah. And just remind them from time to time to, hey, share this, or if there's something that's a really awesome post, send them the link to it and say, hey, go on Facebook and share this for us, or whatnot.
I think a lot of people, pastors or just people in church in general, forget to mention their social media on Sundays when they're preaching. I'm not saying do a sermon on Facebook, but by all means at the end, remind people like, hey, don't forget, we're on, like share it with your friends. We talked about baiting earlier. So if you start doing the, hey, share this, like this, post this on Facebook, you're going to get flagged for what they call baiting. But that's the perfect opportunity is when you're standing in front of your congregation, when you're doing your live streams, to remind people like, hey, don't forget we're on social media. It helps us get the word out. It helps us let people know about the church. It's a perfect opportunity and a great way to get away with that without getting in trouble for it on social media.
Yeah, there's a lot of copyright questions, and that is a whole nother like training session to have. That's so confusing, and there's not an easy answer to that. There are some learning sessions about that already on resourceumc.org. I don't remember what the friendly URL is. Actually, you can find them on resourceumc.org/LCS. There's one on copyrights that I tag team with Diana Sanchez-Bouchong from Discipleship Ministries. If you do have questions about that, I'm going to refer you to her. I'm sure she will love that I did that on here, but she's really, really knowledgeable on that. I know that the hymnal, I think, has been, there's a break of, you can use it freely still. I think that kept getting extended. But there are two main licenses that I know of. One's one license and one is CCLI. And I can't tell you which songs as far as your preludes and all that when you stream them, but you need the streaming license too. So there's a regular music license and then there's a streaming license, and you definitely need the streaming license. But as far as which songs you're picking, it depends if it's public domain. It depends if there's additional verses that aren't public domain, even though the main, most of the song might be. It's so complicated, so I can't give a concise answer here, but I would just check the catalogs for those two licenses and make sure that the songs that you're choosing are covered, and make sure that you have that streaming license. That's really important as well. I know
I've gotten a question asking about hashtags, and it's a really easy answer, and it's use them. It might be hard to figure out which ones, but there are actually a lot of hashtag generators. There are several apps that you can download that show you kind of put in what your main content or hashtag would be, and it populates similar hashtags, and it shows you what's doing well and what's been more popular on Instagram or on Facebook. And that's another good point too. Facebook had kind of been like the don't put hashtags there place for a while, but it's actually trying to like take back the hashtags and reclaim them. So you'll notice now on your phone, if you go in your search option on Facebook, you now see all these populated popular discussions based off of hashtag usage. So it's really kind of coming back to Facebook. So I would encourage you to use them both places. And again, if you're not sure which ones to use, just download one of the generators and put in what the main one you think should be, and it's going to show you very similar hashtags that are doing well, but I say absolutely yes, use them. Never more than 7. 7's kind of like that max where people see it and it's just annoying visually. But I would say up to about 7, but just find those main ones that work for you and your church. It's a great way for people to search information about your church and what's going on at your church, especially if you're having events and that sort of thing. And make sure you have a hashtag for your church that you're using as well, one that's specifically for your church. And constantly use those. Don't just throw it out there here or there, but make sure you're constantly using them.
Yeah. It seems from the questions that we have, there's a whole nother live Q&A learning session for streaming worship.
Yes.
So let's plan to do that, and we'll answer a lot more of your questions. I'm just kind of throwing that out there, so I'm getting you on the hook on this one. But we'll do a whole nother one on live streaming for worship and stuff, because I know that churches, although you've probably hopefully bounced into that space. I know that there's a lot of ways to make it better, to stream on multiple platforms if you're just on Facebook or YouTube. I know that there's even, there was a comment about, where to go? Anyway, it was about making sure when Facebook, if they think you're doing copyright infringement, they're going to bump your stream or cut you off. We had that happen one Sunday. It was because we were doing pre-recorded music at the very beginning, and it didn't like that. It could tell that we were pushing music. So I think that there's just a lot of intricacies around that we can discuss in more detail than we have time for right now. Lenora asked, now that they have their virtual worship video format down, how do we transition back to live streaming in real time and maintain a quality video worship product? I think I asked this even though we're going to talk about live streaming another time, because I want to just make sure that everybody knows, just be simple. Make it simple. You don't have to have the fanciest equipment to do everything for any of these social media platforms. You can use a phone on a tripod. That works. Just make sure that your sound and your video quality are good. I know that we had some comments about internet struggles, and I know that a lot of our older buildings have Wi-Fi and internet issues. So we'll dig into all that deeper. But I think in the meantime, if you just remember to keep it simple, people just need to be able to hear you and see you. And just ask for feedback from your congregation too. I think that it's helpful to kind of hear what are they missing, what would make it feel more regular or like it used to be, and just kind of get some feedback on that. I think we didn't really touch on Tick-Tock too much, so are there any thoughts you have on Tick-Tock?
It's for your youth, and I would say if you have a big youth department, if you have very active youth, use it. By all means, use it. You can run ads there as well, especially if you have a big youth conference coming up or something of that nature. It's a great place for that. A lot of pastors, I think, are scared of it, or people who are admins or just kind of working in the church doing social. So I always tell people, if you have a great youth leader who's comfortable just kind of being in charge of that and overseeing that, then that's really the best way to go. But yes, if you have youth at your church, then by all means, if you're trying to grow youth at your church and you don't have a youth pastor yet, just kind of get in there and figure it out. There are several churches that are using it in really great ways, and that's the best thing, is you can really just kind of go in and look and see what other people are doing, see how other churches are using it, and just kind of get some really great ideas from that. I think Snapchat's kind of in that same space, and it just really, it's going to appeal to a certain audience, so just know that going in, and just be careful with your content. Just know that it's going to be a platform where the content's kind of all over the place. So just keep an eye on it and definitely use it. If you have, like I said, that youth group, you want to grow that youth group, or if you don't have a youth group and you're trying to get some people in, just remember to be really, and I guess this kind of goes for every platform, be very authentic and transparent. If your church does not have a youth group, you're trying to bring in a youth group, don't start posting a lot of things that's maybe like content you've gathered from other places that's showing all these youth and young people, because if I'm 16 and I show up to your church and I'm the only 16-year-old, I'm probably not going to come back. And that goes a lot of different ways for a lot of different platforms. So just make sure that whatever you're putting out there, it's very reflective and transparent of what your church is, what your church looks like, what's going on at your church. And so that's why it's really important to put a lot of content out right now on all the platforms showing what your church is. What do your members look like? What does your service look like? What's happening at your church? Because if someone new is interested, they want that transparency. If somebody's been looking for a church, they want to see what your church really is before they come, probably, to just kind of check it out. So make sure that what you're putting on social media is a really good reflection of what your church actually is.
Perfect point to end with. So we are about out of time today for this live learning session. I told Renee before this, I said these go by so fast. It's over before you know it. It's been so good to be able to, I was looking down at my phone a little bit throughout this just to kind of follow the conversation that was happening. And it was the tips on HIPAA. There was a big conversation on HIPAA and prayer requests and stuff. So I think that I thank you for your engagement of not only asking questions throughout this session for us to help answer. And I know we didn't get to nearly all of them. Renee's going to be working through that pre-registration list this week to make sure that your questions, if they weren't answered today, they get answered throughout the next week or so. So I'm so thankful that she's going to do that and be helpful and help you in that way. We'll make sure to work through these comments as well. I know somebody's already asked when the next learning session is a few minutes ago, so we'll be sure to get that information out there. You have to get our Communications Essentials emails. That's the main way that these learning sessions are promoted. I think they're also promoted through MyCom, which is another e-newsletter here at UMCom. So both of those are superbly helpful that give out a bunch of content blocks of our resources and grants and a bunch of opportunities that we're here to help your local church with things. So I want to thank you for joining us for this live local church Q&A on social media for the local church from United Methodist Communications. This video will live on the UMCom Facebook page and on the UMC Videos YouTube channel to come back and reference in the future. Or if you're a conference communicator, I think the Great Plains Conference was commenting along with us today. If you're a conference communicator or a district administrator, you can share this video on your own Facebook pages or groups to help your local churches in your area. If our team can be of any help in marketing and communications, please let us know and go to resourceumc.org/LCS or reach out to us at localchurchservices@umcom.org. Just a reminder again that your support makes these learning sessions possible. So if you'd like to make a special donation to support communications ministry, you can do that at resourceumc.org/giveumcom. So thank you, Renee, for being with us today. And I hope that this has been a really helpful session. I know that there's so much more that we can cover, and we hope to do that soon. Have a great day.